Here we go. Presentation time. Yes, just a reminder to keep yourself on mute when not sharing so that we can limit background noise. And as you just heard, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. So I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Kendra. As a certified generational healing coach and mother of five, Kendra Stein shows and knows the ins and outs of both the challenges and the joys that family brings. Having led support groups and workshops for over 10 years, she truly enjoys providing a safe space where participants feel seen, heard, and empowered. Kendra offers a simple and effective path to healing within the family. The process begins with learning skills and tools for positive communication and self-awareness. Next, the focus shifts into repairing and creating healthy attachment bonds between a parent and a child. Kendra will work with you to create a personalized healing plan using the highly advanced and effective protocol of the Generational Healing Program. She provides one-on-one sessions as well as small groups for parents. And today, Kendra is continuing the topic of fight right. Was it last month? No, 2 months ago in February. She did the first talk on fight right, and it was so popular. And so we needed to continue this because it was definitely not fully covered. So she's very happy to be here, and we're happy to continue this wonderful and explore this wonderful topic of how to fight and how to fight right. So without further ado, let's welcome up Kendra.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Shauna. Yes, we did 2 months ago began to talk about this book, Fight Right. And it is a book that the Gottmans put out about a year ago to help couples, especially when in COVID, when there was not a lot of availability for therapy and a lot of couples were trying to figure out their relationships on their own. And it was really challenging. So they made this book to really support couples to take it home with them, to go through it together. They made it really user friendly, lots of examples. And I really do believe it's one of the best books out there. It's cutting edge. It's brand new with real data and research and facts and science, so that it's not just about someone's opinion, but this is proven by all their 20 years and thousands of couples researching what it means in their love lab, researching what it means to be a master of love. How do we actually have relationships that are long lasting, fulfilling, happy, what we all really want and are striving for, but somehow we find that we don't always get there, that it's a struggle. And one major thing is how we do conflict. They discovered that we actually need conflict because through this kind of conflict, we find connection and we find intimacy and we learn about each other and we learn about our hopes and our dreams and things that really matter. So when we don't have any conflict, when we completely avoid conflict, they found that those couples don't really last either. They either drift apart and don't stay together, or they just end up as roommates, just living side by side, but not really feeling a deep connection with each other. So we need conflict, but we also need to do it right. And when we do it right, we feel connected after. That's the goal. So we're going to pick up where we left off from last time that we did this. And I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So we begin with just a quick overview of the last time. We kind of ended here with mastering conflict, the things that the masters of love had in common through their studies, through the research. They found that there's these very specific things that all the people that had long lasting relationships had these things in common. And just briefly, the soft startup. So beginning the fight or the conversation with curiosity, compassion, with feelings, with using I statements, really owning our own side of the street instead of blaming. They found using the four horsemen, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, those were what creates a harsh startup. And that does not create a long lasting relationship because the way that we start a fight is also the way that it ends. And so they found that we really need to start softly. Also, the 5-to-1 ratio. So, even during a fight or an argument, it's really, really important that we maintain 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative. So that if we say something mean or negative to the other person, that means we need to have 5 interactions that are positive to counteract that so we maintain our connection. And that just means even something like, okay, I see where you're coming from, or I'm sorry about that, or let me try to understand you, or even just a touch on the arm or some gesture of softness, or making a joke and being humorous in the right way. Those are examples of positivity, even in the middle of a fight, that maintains connection. And they found that that's part of the masters of love, what helped make them successful. Taking a break. Super, super important. We often try to have our arguments while we're flooded, while we are feeling amped up and angry or shut down. Sometimes people get numb and shut down and check out, and the partner doesn't really recognize that that means they're not available to connect. When we're shut down or we're dysregulated and amped up and angry or scared, we actually don't have access to our empathy. We can't connect. So it really just hurts to keep trying. So we have to take a break if we're not feeling present and alert in the moment. That's really, really important. And lastly, turning toward our bids for connection. And so when our partner comes toward us in some way, like even just saying, hey, check out this video, or hey, what should we make for dinner? Or hey, look what the kids did today. Some moving toward and wanting some kind of response from our partner. They found that these masters of love, they responded positively toward their partner's bids for connection 86% of the time. Those were the ones that lasted. The people that did not last, that ended in breakup, or they didn't were not happy or satisfied in their relationship, they only turned positively toward their partner's bid for connection 33% of the time. So that's something that all of us can work on, just starting right now today, noticing when your partner turns to you to they want something from you, some connection, that you stop what you're doing and you try to lean in toward them positively 86% of the time, if possible. And so that's a conversation that I love to have when I'm working with couples. I love to have them ask each other, what is your bid for connection? Because oftentimes we don't even know. We have, and sometimes our bids for connection have turned kind of negative. And so we're not getting the responses that we're looking for. So that's a great starter for a conversation for you and your partner. So these all we talked about these last time, and I just wanted to go over them again, just a reminder, and you can always check out the video too to go more in depth. So let's move on to the things we didn't quite get to cover. Gridlock. Okay. So what about when we can't agree? What about when we have tried to be kind and to bring up our issue in a way that is in that softened startup, and we're not activated, and we've really done our best to maintain some positivity and connection, but we just don't agree? Remember, 69% of our conflict is perpetual. It is not solvable. We actually won't agree. We won't have a compromise that where we both decide, okay, good, we're both getting what we want here. We are just different human beings. And so they developed the bagel method to help when we find ourselves in this kind of conflict, of this gridlock where, man, we just have different opinions or different views, and we just don't know how to find a solution here. So, the bagel method helps us to figure out, where are we flexible and where are we really not? How do we distinguish the two? And so this exercise, you sit down with your partner and you draw a little circle in the middle, and in the middle are all the things in your conflict that you're having that you are inflexible. You cannot give up. This is like your hopes, your dreams, your identity, things that are so important to you in that conflict that you just cannot compromise on. And then draw a bigger circle around it so it looks like a bagel. And everything in that outside circle is where you are flexible. What can you compromise on? What are the things that you can see yourself being flexible? If you had your middle, then what else could you give up or compromise? And compromise is the key word. We have to be able to compromise or this won't work. In order to be in a relationship successfully, we have to be able to compromise. And so this helps us to figure out, well, how exactly do we compromise? What does that look like? And so we have there's a few examples in the book, and I'm just going to talk about one. And basically, they have this couple who they highlight. Their names are Vince and Jenny. They are 60 in their 60s. They live in Seattle, and Vince is about to retire. And Vince and Jenny have been in a gridlock about what are they going to do after retirement? Okay, so they have been trying to do all the right things and talk about their different opinions and ideas, and they just have not been able to compromise because they have different dreams about retirement. So Vince wants to travel and see the world. He wants to get a sailboat and sail around the world. Jenny wants to sell their house and move to her family's farm that's been in their family for generations, that she spent summers there as a kid, and that's her dream. So they have opposite dreams. They just have opposite dreams. One wants to travel the world in a sailboat, the other wants to sell their house and move to the farm. So the first thing that the Gottmans did was they helped them to understand there has to be some compromise here. They have to be willing to be influenced by their partner. And that means they also have to be willing to let go of their need to have everything that they want. And there's a few questions, a few things here that they wrote in the book that help you see, how flexible are you willing to be right now? How flexible, how much compromise are you allowing yourself in the relationship? And maybe you can also think about your partner. And our goal would be to answer yes to all of these questions. So ask yourself, and you can take a picture of these. I know it's a lot of questions, but I'm interested in my partner's opinion. Are you? Are you interested in their opinion? I listen with curiosity to their point of view and I ask questions. I'm genuinely curious. Okay, what is their perspective? I want to know. I'm curious. I ask questions. Is that a yes? Does your partner ask questions to you? Are they curious about your point of view? 3, I think my partner has a lot of basic common sense. This might be a hard one for some of you. If you just feel like your partner's crazy or they just don't have common sense, that is a problem because then we dismiss them as irrational and we don't want to hear their point of view. We just minimize it and say that it's not relevant or allowed to be equal to ours. That's a problem. How about I learned something from my partner even when I disagree? So, do you feel like your partner has some value in their perspective? Even if you disagree with them, can you learn something from them? The answer should be yes. Okay, I'm willing to try things my partner's way. How often do you allow yourself to try things their way? Are you always trying things their way? Do you never get to try things your way? That's really important that we feel balanced here, that we both try things each other's way pretty equally. And last, I want my partner to feel influential and respected in this relationship. I want them to feel like they have influence. I want them to know that I really respect them and their opinion. So this may be hard. Some of these questions might be tough and confronting for some of us, especially when we've been in a relationship for a long time. It can get harder to respect our partner, to be curious about them, to learn things from them. We think we already know them. We think we already understand, but man, we need curiosity. Even if we've been together for 40, 50 years, we still need to be curious and want to understand their reality. So these are really important that both people are answering yes to these questions. Okay, so they took this couple, Vince and Jenny, and they sat them down and they helped them to kind of go through these things to understand, to get to the bottom line of we need to be able to compromise and respect and value each person's opinion. And then I'll go back to the bagel. Then they got into drawing the bagel. And so in the middle, they had Vince and Jenny each were able to put what are they inflexible on? What was their deep hope, dream, desire, need that they could not give up? So Jenny put fulfilling my family's legacy by living on the farm. Okay. And then Vince put experience the freedom and adventure of sailing around the world. Right. So they really wanted these two things. And they also realized they wanted to do them together. They didn't want to go do them alone. They didn't want to be alone and separate. They wanted to do these things together. So then, once they were able to come to a place of understanding compromise, then they had a lot of things they could put in this outer layer of flexibility, things that were more of the how do we get those things? How do we get them? What do they look like? So they were flexible here, whether or not they sold their house, they're flexible. Whose dream gets to go first? Where do they go? When does the dream start? When does it end? How long does it last? Whether we do the dreams part-time or full-time, and then how much money that we're going to spend versus how we're going to save. These were all their flexible areas. So they realized in comparing their bagels, once they came to a place of desiring compromise and being open and flexible, then they realized they had a lot of areas to work with there, that they could do both of their dreams, that it wasn't impossible. And so they ended up deciding that they would do both, that they would sell their house and move to the family farm and live there for a year, and that'd be their home base. And then they would start traveling for several months at least out of the year to go sailing and enjoy their retirement. So they both got to get what they wanted. But they fought for years about this, but they could not come to a compromise because they were not willing to be curious about the other. They didn't want to compromise. They were very inflexible. So the bagel method really helped them after they asked these questions and they came to an understanding of mutual respect and flexibility within the relationship. And so I want to ask all of you, what is a perpetual fight that keeps coming up in your relationship? And I want you to write down, and you can draw your bagel, and you can write down at the top a topic of a fight that you just keep on fighting about. And if it's not a romantic partner, it can be with a parent or sibling or child or, some friend, something, someone else, another relationship in your life that works too. But what is a perpetual fight? Something that, man, you just keep having the same fight over and over. And let's help work through that fight, that gridlock. Let's do the middle circle of what is your unmet need or unfulfilled dream that goes in the middle. What is that thing that is inflexible that you cannot compromise on? That's really important. And think about why it's so important to you. And then as we are writing this and taking time for this, I want to take a few minutes to give everyone the chance to kind of think about it and write it out. But I'm also open to questions. And if you need help figuring out, okay, I have this perpetual fight, but I don't know what my need is. I don't know what the dream is. I need help getting to that middle. Then you can go ahead and unmute or put in the chat and we can talk about it and see if we can help you get to that deeper layer of what's underneath. And if not, just feel free to, I want everyone to take a few moments to just write it out for yourself and see if you can separate those two things. The need and what's inflexible, where you can't compromise, and then maybe how you get there. What does that look like playing out? Where could you be flexible, knowing how important it is?
On that last slide, what was the fourth question?
Why is it important to you?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's either going to be in the middle, a need or a hope or a dream, some kind of way that it's attached to your identity of who you are. And those things we do sacrifice things in relationships. However, we want to be able to fulfill our dreams too. Being in a partnership means that we are supporting each other in fulfilling our dreams, if possible. So we'll take a few minutes to let everyone do that, and then I will ask for a volunteer to share their bagel with us. I'll do one more minute, and then I'll ask for a volunteer. Okay. So even if it's not complete, is there anyone who feels brave enough to share their bagel with us, to share a conflict that has been coming up for them, and what are some things that go in the middle of their bagel, and what are some things that are more flexible that are on that outer layer? Yes, June. Go ahead and unmute and you can share.
So, I've been asking my husband really if he could just, continue I haven't known exactly how to bring it up, but I want him to do therapy or some kind of work to heal his complete inability to trust people. And he is a classic at avoidant attachment. It's been very difficult. I've been praying about it because I don't know how to bring it up without being hurtful or putting him
Mm,
down and making him feel like nothing. So it's really sensitive issue. So yeah.
mhm. Great.
Uh,
That's a great gridlock example. And so, what goes in the middle for you? What's your hopes and dreams and needs in the middle?
my hopes and dreams. My hope is that we could have um let's see. Yeah. I want to miss him. I want to like have emotional connection with him.
Hmm.
That's what I
So, you
want.
want an emotional connection where
Mhm.
you feel feelings for the other
Uh,
person, where you feel some physical sensations of love or care or longing. Is that
right.
mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good? Okay. And so that's your middle. And if you had that, then the how you got there could be flexible. Because I bet
Uh,
what we would want to do is then ask your partner, what is his middle? So this is kind of like what marriage looks like, right? Your perpetual fight or your conflict is how to be married. What does marriage look like? What's our goals here? And one thing you have in the middle is you want a deep emotional connection with your partner. And so he would go to his middle and figure out what is his need that he needs also to be met. And maybe his is something like, I need to feel safe, emotionally safe. He doesn't care if he feels connected, he just needs to be safe. And so then you guys would figure out, okay, to honor and support each other's need in that middle, let's talk about all the things around it. So, how to get there could be flexible. Well, what does that look like? So, for you, him going to therapy is not in the middle. Because if you were to be able to get that deep emotional connection without him going to therapy, if he figured out how to do it without that, you'd be okay with that, right?
yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. So you could put that in your outer circle of, getting counseling. You're flexible on that,
I
right?
am, but I don't see the other way
That's right. And that's where we get
because he's
stuck.
stuck
Yeah.
there.
Yes, that's right. And so what other things are you flexible on? Like how long are you willing to be in a relationship without emotional intimacy? Forever? For another year? For 10 more years? How long are you willing to give up this dream or this hope or this need?
Um, I think another year.
Hmm. Okay.
I'll
So
give him
then that
that
would
much.
be right.
That's
You could
probably
have
too much wiggle room. Gosh.
you could have, I mean, you've probably already done it for, you know, decades. So one more year is, it may feel like a lot, but in the big scope of things, it's probably doable. And so you could have that in your inflexible. Maybe you're like, I can be flexible up to a year. Anything before that is fine, but beyond that, I'm not flexible. I won't be able to go longer than that. So I can do this, what we're doing, but I can't do it for longer than that. So you'd have that in there in your middle. And so then the outside, we're looking into the method, how he gets there, right? That's now what about for is there anything else you could compromise on that would be helpful for him? Anything that he would be kind of asking you to compromise on? What do you think that would be for him? Okay, so for his emotional safety, right, in that middle, if just say that was his thing, if he wanted to stay safe, because avoidance do, that's what they want. They don't want to deal with feelings, they just want to stay safe. So then
Right.
what could you compromise on for that? Like how deep do you want to go? Do you want to have deep emotional connection and talking every single day for hours? Or if you just had 1 hour a week that you could connect deeply, or even 5 minutes a day or something like that, right? Your amount of connection might be your flexibility.
Okay.
What do you think about that? What's your goal as far as how much time, how much connection do you need? Because for him, he might think about, I can't do what she's asking. I can't emotional connection like that is he might imagine it to be she just wants to talk about feelings all day and I can't do that. So where's the compromise for you and what does that look like? How much would be where you would feel I could be flexible with that?
Um, I think maybe either I want some every day, like 20 minutes, at least 5 days out of the week. I would
Mm-hmm.
like about 5 days out of the week.
Mm-hmm. Good. So if you
Maybe
had about
4. Yeah, but
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if you had about 20 minutes, of emotional connection, give or take a few minutes, about 5 days out of the week, you would be satisfied. And so you could have in your inflexible also kind of like, this is my need. This is my bare minimum of really what I need. If I had this, then I could let go of the other days of the week or the rest of the hours of the day. If I just had this little bit, that would be enough for me. Right. And even that may be a little flexible. So you're really trying to figure out your bare minimum here of what you cannot compromise on.
Uh, okay.
Mhm.
That would be it. Yeah, that's pretty much my bare minimum.
Yeah,
Oh
good.
yeah, maybe 15 minutes, but not, oh boy. Yeah.
Right. But not
But
five.
not, yeah, but not like so infrequent. One a big hour or two once a week is like,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Good. And so then we would have your partner would also sit down and make a bagel, and he would have what his need is in the middle. He's inflexible, right? And so he needs to feel safe, emotionally safe. And he also, maybe he has no therapy is one of his inflexible, maybe that's one of his things. He says, I'm not going to budge. I will not talk to some random person about my personal life because I know people who feel that way. They really don't feel comfortable talking to anybody. So maybe he can still get that if he's willing to give you and support you in your bottom line and what your needs are, seeing that you're being flexible, and you can also see that um like he's trying to support you and you try to support him and what's in that middle. So then you'd have to see also, ask him, well, what are you flexible on? Because we can't never talk about feelings, or you can't actually be in a relationship and be emotionally safe all the time, because that's not a relationship. Being in relationship requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is vulnerable because you're exposing yourself it's not safe. It's dangerous. It's scary. It's like, so we have to take risk in relationship. So if he feels like I have to be emotionally safe and never express any feelings anytime ever, that means he doesn't really want to be married. Like he doesn't really want to be in a relationship that requires that. That would just show you that. And maybe he could see that for himself. Like, oh, maybe that's my problem is I want to be like I've heard some kind of going around the internet a little bit too of some guys want to be married to another guy. They want to be like, we just don't talk about feelings ever, and we want the men want their wives to be like other men where they just, you know, suck it up and they're tough and they don't talk. But then if they wanted to be married to a man, they should go be married to a man. But they're married to a woman who has feelings and emotions and she wants to talk about things. So that's kind of the deal when you got married, you signed up for that. So this is where, when we can break it into the bagel method, we can see what is really the inflexibility. What is he not willing to compromise on? And is there a way you can support him to get what he wants? Or is it irrational? Is it like, hey, the things you're asking for, that's not going to work for me. That there has to be a little more compromise. And this is what the Gottmans help people with, is to say, hey, if you want to be married, you're going to have to compromise. You're going to have to be flexible. And that's what the statistic they had in the book that I shared last time. The men who were unwilling to allow influence from their wives, 81% of the time ended up in a breakup. Their relationship ended up being broken up. 81% of the time, the men who did not allow influence. So that list of questions, the men that answers no to all of those, they didn't stay in a relationship. It just doesn't work. That's a statistic. So that's why this book is so great, because you can offer to your partner, like, hey, check this out. This is based on data, science, research. This is real stuff here. And maybe in his middle, he wants to be happy in a relationship too. So the goal too is to find out, where do you match? Where can you guys say, look, here's what we agree on. We both want to be happy and fulfilled and feel connected and joy and love for each other. We actually both want that. Good. Okay, you're starting somewhere. But what if you both don't want that? What if he doesn't care? What if he's like, no, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Then you're going to have a problem where you're going to need professional help. So this is the breakdown. This is why the bagel method's so good. We get to see how flexible we are, how willing we are to compromise, and how we're actually supporting each other's goals or not. How does all that land with you, June?
Yeah, let's see. Well, oh, it does land with me, and oh man, it's bringing up a host of feelings I couldn't get up to, even begin. Except that, as an Asian person, uh, it's like, wow, it is so ingrained in Japanese Asian culture to keep deferring to your husband. Oh, and it's such a big, um, let's see, so what would I say? A wall, um, for me to keep like breaking down.
That's right. And so
I'm responsible for it too. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The way we get unstuck is by removing the blame and the focus off of our partner and turn it back to ourselves, to what do I need and how can I get my needs met? And if I'm choosing to be in a relationship with this person, then it's my responsibility to accept where they meet me. If they don't want to change, if they don't want to compromise, I have to live with the unmet needs and I can go get them met somewhere else. Or I have to tell that person, I can't be in a relationship with you. because you're choosing not to meet these needs that I have. And that's your choice. And so if you choose to stay, you want to make sure that you're not holding on to resentment and blame, because then you just stay stuck and unhappy forever. So the way to get unstuck is to pull all of that, the spotlight off of our partner and turn it back to ourselves to say, okay, I'm choosing to be here. I'm choosing to be with this person. I don't want to leave them ever. So how am I going to survive? I have these needs. They don't want to meet them. Then it's up to me to get them met somehow. And I have to give up my dream or my desire that is in that middle circle. Maybe you have to, in order to stay together, you have to sacrifice your desire for connection in a relationship. And only you get to make that choice, what that sacrifice feels like to you or not. So I know for me personally, I got down to this very root in this bagel method with my now ex-husband, but we were married for 21 years. And we realized in the middle of our bagels, I wanted a relationship that we were equal partners, that we got to make decisions together equally. And the middle of his bagel was the husband was the subject and in charge, and the wife was the object and had to submit. And the husband had to always be the one to make the final decision, and the wife had less influence in the relationship and less power. And so I was so mad and resentful for so long because we were butting heads. But when we finally got down to the root of it, we realized we just had different ideas of what it meant to be married. And we had never gotten down to the root like that before. Well, once we recognize that, I could say, oh, I can see that. And there's plenty of people that would agree with that and want to do that. They want to have the husband just always makes the decision and the wife has to agree or whatever, that works for some people. But that didn't work for me. And so finally, we recognized we just do a lot better now as co-parents. We're great partners. We work so well as a team. We're raising the kids really well, but we can't be married because we don't agree on what that looks like. So our life is now full of peace and joy and man, it's so wonderful. So that was us, but everybody's different. Some people are like, well, no, getting divorced is not an option. So if both people agree with that, then how can they find their compromise, right? How can they both figure out what the middle of their bagel is that's the same? And if they can't, are you willing to give up something in order to stay? And these are all questions that you get to have the answer to, and no one else can decide for you. But you may need some extra help. That's why people go to therapy, or they have spaces where they can kind of process it and talk it out and figure out these are really important questions. Does that help a little bit there, June? Kind of get some clarity or understanding of a way forward for you?
Yes. Well, especially getting down to that root, the root points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And some people, once they realize that their partner, they say, like you said, I can't do this for more than a year. I can keep going, but after a year, I'm done. I won't be able to stay with you anymore. That's what they need to hear so that they have motivation to change. Some people are just too comfortable. They're like, well, why would I change? You're just going to stick around forever, so I don't need to change. But if you are honest and you tell them, I cannot stay, I'm going to die if I stay because I need emotional connection, then they can say, well, I don't want you to leave. I want to be married. That's more important to me than staying safe. And that will be the motivation for your partner to want to go to therapy or read a book or do some work with you. And I've worked with a lot of couples that was the change. That was what they needed. They needed a little motivation, a little more uncomfortability. And here's the big fact is that our brain tries to keep us safe from pain, emotional pain included. Now, if your husband has a lot of trauma, his emotional pain that he's thinking about is way up to the top when he thinks about opening that door, looking at his trauma, going back to past hurts. It's this is a high pain. The pain that he's experiencing being in a relationship with you is down here. It's yeah, she's uncomfortable, but that's fine. I'm here. I'm uncomfortable, but not this bad. But if you say, well, honey, I'm not going to stay. I'm going to go live somewhere else. I'm not going to be with you anymore. Then he goes, whoa, that would be way painful. So then this amount of pain, it's less than this. So he goes, okay, fine. I'd rather deal with my trauma than have you leave me because that would be unbearable. But where he's at now, bearable. He'll stay there as long as it's comfortable. So that's literally the physiology, the science. The brain is not going to let him do the work as long as it doesn't make sense for him for that level of pain. Yeah. So I know it's tough, but it works. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, June. I appreciate it. All right. So we have just one more concept left that we'll go back into for this, which is the repair process that someone asked about. What does it mean to make a repair? So in a relationship, sometimes we have a rupture, which means we feel disconnected. We're now feeling like we're not close. We don't have a positive feeling toward our partner. We feel distant or angry or upset somehow, and we want to repair. We want to create a connection again. And even if we've had an old fight that we never processed, we never came to a compromise on, we can go back into old fights, we can bring them up and we can repair them. And it's actually really important to do. So after you've had a fight, there's some signs that you can look for to see, do I need to go back and process that or not? Well, if it's a subject that when you talk about it, it just leads to more fighting, okay, that would be a sign. Or if you just avoid the topic entirely, then there's less connection there because you just have to tiptoe around and avoid that topic. That means it needs to be processed. Or if there's just more fighting in general, right? Like the couple in the book, the example, Jenny and Vince, they were fighting all the time about everything. They were just passive aggressive, feeling disconnected because there was this thing that they needed to process. And so if you just notice, man, we've just been really hostile or distant or disconnected, then that means there's something you need to go back to process and repair. So in the book, they have a 5-step process, and it's so cool because they lay out so many examples of, okay, they have a whole page of feelings. They have a whole page of things you can say. They have a whole thing about triggers and how to take responsibility and quotes. I mean, it's just full of abundance for support for couples who are trying to do this together without the support of a therapist. So reading the book is really helpful. Now, what I have done just for this presentation is just simplified it into 3 steps. So if you don't have the book and you just want to try to jump into a repair process, then you start with my reality. You go back to, okay, when we had that fight, or when we have this conflict that we kind of tiptoe around, or this thing that we just can't seem to figure out, or this one time we really hurt each other's feelings, or whatever it is, you're bringing up an old wound, something that happened. Here's my reality. Now, once you say that, you're kind of free to express whatever. You don't have to stay so constricted to using all the I statements and speaking properly. And you can be a little more flexible to say, man, when that happened, I thought you were really mad at me and I felt like it wasn't fair and I was really upset about it and I felt really disconnected. Okay, so I used a little bit of you statements, a little bit of feelings, but I say, this is my reality. This is not the truth. This is not an accusation. This is not you're a bad person and you need to change and fix yourself. This is, I want to express my experience. And that's all it is my bubble, my reality, my lens, my experience. So I found that if you say that first and both people understand that you're really owning that's just your experience, which is different than your partner's, then you have a little more flexibility there. You don't have to be so caught up in all the rules, which I found is helpful for couples. So number 1, my reality, including feelings. Number 2, What's my part in this? Now, this is so important for people to take responsibility, no matter how egregious the crime of your partner. It's important to take responsibility. What is your part? I had a lot of things going on in my relationship that was really difficult. There was a lot of really like just crossing the line in really terrible ways that I could easily blame my partner. And I have, even when I'm coaching couples, sometimes, infidelity and things come up, and the person who was cheated on wants to just blame their partner. They're the bad guy, obviously. Well, I always ask, and so do the Gottmans, so do all the people who help couples. Both people have to take responsibility. It's never one-sided. It's always both. So if you were cheated on, how did you contribute to that? You're not responsible for their actions. That was their choice. But what led up to that created that dynamic in your relationship? All the time, I find that people have abandonment wounds, their avoidance, they try to avoid conflict, or they're people pleasers and they try to just make sure their partner is happy, but they never stand up for their own needs. So they just let things go, or they have trauma, so they allow themselves to be abused and mistreated. That's all their part, their responsibility. Even if something bad, their partner hurt them in some way, they're still responsible for their side, for their part. So this is a very important part of a repair. This is my reality, and here's how I contributed. Here's my part in it. And the last thing is, what do I need? What do I need? 1, 2, 5. That's supposed to be 1, 2, 3. What do I need from this? You hurt me in this way. This was my reality. I can see how I should have brought this up earlier because now I'm really resentful. It wouldn't have been such a big deal if I would have just spoken up sooner. And what I need is that you apologize or that you recognize where you hurt me, right? 3 steps. And so this is really, really important for couples to go back and process when they have ruptures, when they have fights, when they recognize they're starting to like walk on eggshells and tiptoe around each other, that there's something here that needs to be addressed. And when you do the repair process, you have one person that's having all the feelings that needs to speak first. If both people both have feelings, take turns. One person gets to share those 3 things, and then their partner gets to share their 3 things. So we take turns really understanding each other. And if you have trouble with this process, if you can't sit down and talk about things with your partner, you just need some help. And that's okay. The Gottmans were very adamant about a lot of people need help, and that's not a shameful thing. It's not a bad thing that a lot of people are reaching out for help. Now people are even doing premarital counseling. People are going to therapy as couples before they even get married. And that's so important. It's so amazing. I wish everyone would do that. I think it's a great idea. Go get counseling. Let's make it normal that we all go to therapy before we even make a lifelong commitment with a partner, right? This is where we want to go, in this direction of it's okay to get support. It's not a bad, terrible, shameful thing. It's actually very healthy, and it helps a lot. I've done so many, man, I've had a lot of couples who are just so, so grateful. They're like, wow, we wish you would have gotten help a long time ago. Why did we wait so long? Because it's so great. So just remember, don't get stuck in blame. Don't blame your partner. If you're always blaming them like they're the problem, you're just going to stay stuck, repeating the cycles. And it's important to own your own wounding. Our wounds, I like to give the example of, we have these emotional wounds. Our emotional body is like our physical body, and that we can get wounded. And if we don't care for our wound, then it causes a lot of trouble. So imagine like when you were younger, in your childhood or in past relationships, you got a big gash on your arm. So now there's this big cut and you never tended to it. You didn't repair it or heal it. And you just kind of slapped a Band-Aid all over the dirt and all over the everything. And it's super infected and it's very tender and sore. That's your wound that's sitting there. Now your partner's just walking along and they accidentally kind of brush against your emotional wound there on your arm, and then you start to fall apart like, ow, oh, you hurt me. Oh my gosh, my arm. And the partner's like, whoa, I just like made one comment. Like I don't understand why you're getting so upset. But because it's our wounding that's infected, that's causing our whole emotional body to be in pain by a tiny little brush against our arm, that's our responsibility. We have to own our wounding and stop taking responsibility to try to fix our partner's wounding. If we're the one that bumped into them, we might need to say like, hey, it sounds like you've got some stuff there. It sounds like there's a lot of wounding there and I can't fix that for you. I can't be responsible for that. You've got to be the one to take off that Band-Aid and look inside and put some ointment on there, right? That's just part of our ownership of being in a relationship. We got to do our own work. And so sometimes both of us, our wounds match, so that I have a cut on my arm here and then they have a cut on their arm right at the same spot. So we're walking by and then boom, we both hit each other and now we're both a mess. We're both triggered. So that's really difficult. It's difficult to process things when we're both having this big wound. But it's really important that we learn about our own wounding and about our partners so that we can show up at sensitive and go, oh, I know you have a wound there now. So now I'm going to be really careful and really sensitive as you heal that. I want to support you in that. Okay, we're almost finished. Final words to remember: our soft startup is a must. We have to start with kindness, with curiosity when we engage our partner. Number 2, don't have conversations when flooded. So if you're starting to feel dysregulated, amped up, panicked, angry, or shut down, checked out, numb, take a break. You cannot connect when you're feeling dysregulated. You have to take some time and then come back when you're feeling better. Remember, there's 2 realities. We each have our own experience and they're equal. They're equal and they both make sense. We just need to take time to get curious, to understand the other person's point of view. And then last, ask for help. If you need help, that's okay. Ask for help. Okay, and now I have a video for you guys this is Jimmy on relationships. I did him in the last one too. And this video is what it looks like when a couple has done the work, when they used to fight or have bad habits, and now they've been practicing these new tools, new ways of being, new ways of fighting, and what it might look like. And so enjoy this little video here.
Hey, I've been feeling really disconnected from you lately. Tell me more? Okay, I don't want to fight. Wait, what? I care about your feelings. You're not going to get defensive and take this as an attack? I guess not. And you're not going to lead with criticism and blame and a whole bunch of resentment? I thought I would try this new thing where I didn't make assumptions and see through a negative lens and actually be vulnerable and mention a feeling instead of starting things with, you never do this or you always do that. Nice. I tried this new thing where instead of interpreting what you said as an attack, I just told myself maybe she's just giving you information on how to love her better and have less conflict. And maybe I should be curious and listen out for any unmet needs or desires hidden underneath the frustration or hurt. Where did you learn that? Memorized it from some dude in a wig. Are we learning how to conflict? I think we are. Wow, what else should we try? Hit me with a little validation. Okay. Your feelings are important to me. It makes sense why you felt disconnected. Tell me what led you to feel that way. That felt good. And you're telling me you're not going to dismiss my feelings as irrational? No, I thought I'd try to understand them instead. Why? Because I love you? Man, this is so much better than fighting.
All right. Isn't that great?
Thank you, Kendra. Round of applause. We finally completed the fight right.
Mhm.
Well, let's open it up for questions and answers.
Yes.
And you can also write in the chat box too.
Patty, do you have a question?
I just had to share. When you were talking about the blame, the blame and the wound, I thought of a cute little way to remember both of them. Just say, no blame, no shame.
There you
You're
go.
not shaming yourself about wounds that you had before.
Mhm, mhm.
Anyway, yeah, thank you.
That's right. No blame, no shame. Beautiful. Yeah. And we can all learn this new way of being, and we can be gentle on ourselves as we learn, right? Like in the video, they're kind of like, oh, you're going to do it different. You're not going to blame me and criticize me. And no, I'm going to validate your feelings. I'm going to be curious. And it's like, wow. And it feels so much better. It feels amazing. And I've been on both ends of this. I've been on the like toxic and really damaging and conflict all the time with no repair. And I've been on this really healthy end of being able to share what's really going on in a really vulnerable and safe way. That there's deep connection and compromise and understanding, and it works really, really well. Myrna.
I was wondering if the Gottmans or you have tips for, like many times when we get upset, it happens before we can catch ourselves and say, oh, I need to take a break. So how do you raise your awareness about, your own emotional state, I guess is the question.
Well, yeah, that's so noticing that we get triggered or that we get big emotional reactions to things would be then recognizing, ooh, maybe I've got an emotional wound because, I get my partner seems like they're being normal or just kind of going about their day, and all of a sudden I'm feeling so upset and angry about it. So maybe I have something there. And this is where it's good for us to recognize when we have feelings, they're our responsibility. That at the end of the day, it's important for our partner to care and show up how they can. And we are the ones who are bringing those wounds to the relationship. So it's our responsibility to look into where they came from and how to heal them. And one way to notice if we have trauma or notice that we have wounding is if we're upset. But see, I want to make clear too, some people don't get angry. They don't get terrified, panicked, upset where they're getting amped up and they're getting like high, their heart rate is fast and their blood is boiling and they're really triggered. Some people actually go the opposite direction and they get hypo aroused. Basically, their body starts to shut down and they go into like a numb, they start to feel really tired. Even it's so fascinating to watch as even I'm doing couples therapy and things. And I watched it in my marriage for a long time, but also with couples, just seeing it in real time in the session when they get dysregulated, they'll go up, 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 up. And then as we try to bring them down, they'll go boom, all the way down and start to just like almost fall asleep. It's a bodily response to stress to either go up or down in our body's response system and how activated we are. And so shutting down, if your partner seems like, man, I start talking to them and they just fall asleep or they get distracted or they're just seems like they're behind an emotional wall. Like I think June had used the word wall and she's like banging on this wall all the time. That's a coping mechanism. They're hiding behind there. They're shut down. They're powered off. They've turned off some parts of themselves. They've disconnected from parts of themselves. So they're not available for connection. And they may seem calm. They might seem like they look like they're there, but they're really not. They're not available. And so it's important if our spouse is telling us, hey, I want to connect with you, but I can't. I feel like you're far away or you're not here or you're distracted or you just keep shutting down every time I want to talk to you. You aren't available. We need to pay attention to that. That's important. That's feedback from someone that we love and care about, that we have signed up to be a partner with. That's our responsibility then to pay attention to that. and say, oh, maybe that we need some help then. Maybe I need some help. Or because if we're blaming, well, then if you would just not be so emotional, I wouldn't shut down. No, that's not going to work. Right? We have to own our responses, come from our own traumas or past relationships or childhood. And there's a lot of ways to work on that. It's very doable. People don't understand. They think that's just the way I am. We're not meant to be triggered all the time. As a human being, we're not meant to shut down or amp up all the time. If you have a small window of tolerance for emotions or stress, that means you've got trauma. That's not normal. A normal human being has a bigger window of tolerance for stress. And one way you can tell is, what kind of driver are you? When you go out onto this town and driving around, are you constantly in road rage? Are you yelling at everybody? Are you just mad about people all the time? That's a sign of trauma. That means there's something there, that it's not everybody else's fault. It's something inside of you. And that you owe it to yourself to find there's a hurt or scared or shamed little boy or girl inside of you that deserves to be seen, to be loved. And that's what I encourage. Patty, did you have something else to add?
Well, I think you just answered it. I was going to ask you a tool for that, and then you gave an example of, when one is driving, or another person, and watching how they do that and how they react. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important. It's easy to see the anger. It's easy to see when someone just goes into rage, or they're yelling at people all the time, or they're just oozing kind of anger. It's harder to notice when someone is just shut off of their emotions, because they might be calm and they might not even feel bad themselves. They might feel like, what? I'm fine. You're mad, you have the problem. Those people, it's important to listen to our partner's request and ask, and that inside their bagel, their hopes and dreams of what are they really wanting, and are their needs being met? If you're not meeting your partner's needs, that's important for you to come to the table with, to say, oh, maybe there's something here that I haven't accessed. I've shut off parts of myself because they're telling me they're missing out on emotional connection. Well, maybe I feel fine, but if they're suffering, I've decided to be in a relationship with them, then I have a responsibility to do the work with them to make sure their needs are being met. And so it can go either way, being able to tell either you're going to be angry or controlling, or right, there's that you can see it, or less visible, but the partner can feel it. The partner always can feel, I don't feel connected to you. I feel like you're behind a wall. That's a thing that people often say. So if your partner's saying that to you, if you're hearing that from your partner, it's so important to take that seriously. It means that there's emotions here that are trapped and that need to come out in order to have that healthy, loving dynamic that you're looking for, or that your partner's looking for.
I think that's a good starting point in a relationship, no matter where you are in the relationship, is asking that important question: what is your need in this relationship? And bounce off from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're already starting on a valuing that other person's point of view, and vice versa. Hopefully they'll ask you yours too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's important. That's right. We should be asking each other. We should both be equally valued in the relationship. Absolutely. And there is a lot of actual practical tools and I teach somatic therapy, and that's where we use the body to help us override our shutdown or our amped up, our fight response, or these things that we naturally automatically do. There's a way, very simple methods, even just breathing is an example of a tool that you can use when you start to feel like now you're getting offline, you're dysregulated, you're mad, you're stressed, you're panicked, something's happening, you're shutting down. You can pause and you can breathe. You can take a breath to try to get your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, back online. Or if you've gone to your logical brain and you don't feel anything, that's another reason to take a breath and sink down into your body to feel, okay, my partner's feeling upset. How can I connect with them? And so I have a lot more, and I think even Myrna talked about emotions and feelings and things last month too. This is a really important topic that a lot of people haven't been taught. They didn't grow up learning these things. So we are all starting now to really understand the importance of our bodies, how we respond, how we feel, emotional intelligence. It's really important in relationships. Yeah. So if you want to know more, feel free to email me. I have a website too that's just www.apathtofamilyhealing.com.
Yeah, Kendra, how about you write down your information in the chat box?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you
and
want
you guys
to
can
contact
reach out
Kendra.
personally.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Awesome.
And we have 3 comments too in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
it's important.
Question, final comments, final words from you, Kendra?
Well, I just think that if we just remember one thing, it's that we're meant to find connection through our conflict. That it's something that we need in a relationship in order to connect. We need to have these engaging experiences where we're leaning in and looking inside of each other's hearts to their hopes and dreams and needs. And that's what a relationship is about supporting our partner to fulfill those things. We love them. Don't we want them to have their hopes and dreams fulfilled on this time that they have in this 100 years or less on earth? Like, that's why we should be with them, because we love them and want them to be happy. And so that should be our motivation. And if it's not, maybe that's not the best relationship for us to be in. And that's okay too. That's okay too. Yeah. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, April 19th. We will share and talk about our next month, and soon. You'll get an email soon for when that will be, when and who will speak. Thank you for coming, and forward to seeing you next month.
You give us a chance to take a picture of the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Kendra's info.
Yep. Kendra just wrote her email. Check out her email if you have any questions. As you can see, Kendra oozes love and passion for this topic, huh? So
yes, you can email me, ask me any questions, do a free consultation. I love coaching couples. It's my favorite thing to do now. So bring your spouse in, and I have not had anyone regret it. Let me tell you, people are like, wow, I didn't want to come. And now that I did, I'm so glad that I did. So bring them in.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Kendra.
Yes. Fabulous.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you next month. You'll get an email.
Bye, Shauna. Love
Bye,
you.
Auntie.
Bye, sweetie. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes. Happy
Get those
Easter.
Easter eggs. Expensive as they are. I love you.
Donna, hello. Good to see you.